It's a Sons of Anarchy episode, and it's a big one. Clay goes rogue behind the club's back on a couple of fronts. Most importantly, he and Tig plan to kill Opie. Unser's message about the real witness to Hefner's murder comes in a bit too late, and it all goes wrong. Blame Stahl, blame Clay, blame Tig, blame Hale, blame Opie, blame anyone and everyone, but this episode changes everything, and I'm joined today by the real star of Belated Binge, making her debut as co-host cousin Amy. Hi, and welcome to Belated Binge, Sons of Anarchy, the re-binge podcast that doesn't take itself or the show too seriously. I'm Zach, your host, revisiting some of the most iconic series in recent memory that I nearly missed out on, like, well, Sons of Anarchy, which got popular when I was in college, and I didn't watch until like after, I don't know, 6 years had passed, and I got my fancy little pieces of paper. And today, we continue our binge of Season 1 with Episode 12, The Sleep of Babies.
The Belated Binge Podcast.
Before we get into it, there will be spoilers. Kinda, sorta. We're keeping this one pretty spoiler-free for a very specific reason that we'll get into in just a second. There will also be adult language and situations. Earmuff the children for the love of whoever you pray to. Shout out to Katie and Alice holding it down for the Bonus Binge Squad. More on Patreon later, but huge shout out to Alice, who is the newest member of the Bonus Binge Squad. And now, the moment that I've been waiting for like 2 years. Seriously, I haven't been able to sleep in like 2 weeks since we decided we were going to do this. My eyes are bloodshot. I'm pretty much methed out. That's how excited I am about this. I finally get to introduce the guest for this podcast. It's Cousin Amy!
I'm sorry you haven't been getting sleep.
It's worth it. So, for the longest time, you've been literally the biggest supporter of this podcast. Fun fact for those who don't know, you're the brains and the skills behind all of the cover artworks that take place, all the little character dude poses and scenes that it plays out for all the different binges, which is quite frankly my favorite part that this podcast has to contribute to the world, and it has nothing to do with me. I have been dying to know, and I've never asked you though, how the hell did you find this podcast in the first place?
Well, so I found this podcast because you told me about it.
Did I really?
Yeah.
That's how this went?
Yeah.
Wow. So marketing was complete fail.
It was a failure on me. It's a failure. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I'm glad to know that all that work and
All that work
hours and
paying off.
days and weeks and months that I spent trying to get it to as many people as possible, I had to reach out to my own family members just to let them know that it existed. It went really well. But you've been listening to the Harry Potter stuff for a while, since whenever I told you about it.
Yeah.
You've never seen Sons of Anarchy.
No.
You're
Yeah.
actually later than me.
I'm later than you. I always laugh at the intro because you're like, if you haven't seen it by now, you're even later than I was. And I was like, that's me.
How the fuck?
All right. So I do remember hearing about this show, but I never jumped in on it because, well, A, I don't have a motorcycle. And B, I was probably busy watching The Office.
Fair.
I think it came out like in 2008, I want to say.
Mhm.
And that was the year I graduated college. And we didn't have like cable. We were poor. So that's probably another reason, I guess. But yeah, I started watching it because, I wanted to listen to all of the Belated Binge episodes. And I was like, I can't just ignore this whole little section. And I also figured since I like Harry Potter and Office and you like both those, I'm like, this one must be pretty good too if he likes it too. So thought I'd give it a roll.
Is it right so far?
Yeah, I've liked it. It was a little at first I was like, I'm not sure about this. But yeah, it's picked up. Because yeah, there's a lot of stuff in it where I'm like, some of the stuff I guess it doesn't it's like it doesn't age well.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know about Some of this.
It ages horribly. It ages like milk, and and at the time even it was a very like edgy.
Yeah.
We don't really do this on TV type of a
Yeah.
show, which might have been part of the reason that it worked so well. But yeah, it does. If you can get past though the cultural brashness
Yeah.
of it, the main
It's a
like
nice way to put it.
undertones of the show are very like they were very much ahead of their time in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. And you haven't gotten to, well, I can't do maths. What is one divided by 7? Because that's how long you've got to go.
Yeah, is it 7 seasons then?
It is. It's
7
7
seasons.
full
Okay.
seasons.
Are they all like 12-ish episodes?
They're all 13 with the exception of one season, and for the life of me right this second, I can't remember which season that is, but
Mhm.
the finale is actually a two-parter, so it's
Makes sense.
14 that season.
Okay.
Fuck, which one was that? I think it's either 4 or 5.
Okay.
I can't
What, that
remember.
has 14 as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I didn't
so
know because you know how The Office starts like it has like 6 episodes for the first
Yeah.
season, and then it like at one point it's like 24 episodes in a season. So I'm like,
yeah,
you never know.
yeah. It's they went the full gamut every season. There's only one that has one extra episode, making it 14, which brings the grand total, I believe, to like 92
Okay.
episodes that are in this thing.
Well,
So you've got
I'm on board.
yeah, you've got
Buckle
like
up.
80 left.
Yeah. It's just one, leave of absence from work away from being finished. Just sit there on the couch and watch it all.
That's pretty much how I did it.
Really?
The moment that I actually dove in, this was one of those, and I've told part of this story on the podcast, but fuck, why? That's why you're here, is to hear me talk, right? Actually, they're here to hear you talk. I had heard that it was good in college. I didn't partake, given life at that time. And it was a weird timing thing because I had just bought my motorcycle.
Mhm.
And I was scrolling through one day when I was home alone looking for something new to watch. And I was like, hey, this is on Netflix. And I remember hearing it was great.
Mhm.
Let me read the little intro thing. And like I read it and I'm like, that's seems like that might be up my alley. Let's give her a go. And then I don't think I moved from that spot on the couch for 4 months. Like I just stayed there and I got very skinny. I almost died twice. And it smelled very, very bad by the time that I finished, but it was a very amazing experience for me. Not so much my now wife.
I was gonna say, was she there? I'm sure she pried you off the couch a few times.
This is actually she hated this show so much.
Oh no.
So I couldn't watch it when she was in the room. And it's because, so you haven't gotten to some of the more sexually driven, uncomfortable scenes that are going to come.
Oh,
in
well, I
this
mean,
show?
there's been a couple, so it's worse. That was
Oh,
child's play.
way worse.
Okay,
Way
wonderful.
worse. And
Great.
and they don't happen that often.
Okay.
Like this isn't a sex show. Like
Yeah.
let me just
It's not like Game of Thrones.
I
There's like a crap ton. Oh,
wouldn't
wait,
know.
you
Didn't see
haven't
it.
seen it. I'm sure. Of course you haven't. All right.
I was
need
watching
to
this.
get you to watch that. That show's amazing.
It's on the short list of possibilities for this podcast.
Oh, it's so good.
But yes, it's from what I've heard of Game, it is not that. However, they do happen. And when they happen, they're kind of brutal to watch for a second. And that is the only time she would walk in the room.
You're like, your timing is impeccable.
That's literally it. The only time she would walk in the room is when one of those was going to happen. And she would just say, like, are you watching your prison sex show? Are you watching your rape show? And I'm like, Jesus, no.
No.
It's bikes and bullets
like,
and it's
why
like
do you like
cool
this?
stuff. Yeah, no, so you're just into this, okay?
She's like, I'm a little worried.
Yeah,
So worried.
she's still here, so
Yeah.
I don't
You didn't scare her
know
away.
what that says about her. Anyways, should we dive into this? Because we could do
Absolutely.
this part all day.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
As usual, with Sons of Anarchy, we're going to try to kick this thing off by trying to introduce the episode as if it was a romantic comedy. somehow for this episode, we're going to manage this. I think. You should love every day like it might be your last, because you never know what the day might bring. 1 minute, you're the happiest you've been in years, smiling, appreciating your family, appreciating your lover. The next minute, you're not. Your brain splattered across the dashboard of your car. Cherish this. I tried. I don't know. Let's jump into
Makes me so
episode
sad.
12 from season 1. It's The Sleep of Babies, and we open on bad commercials. But eventually, we do get to Jax and Tara cuddle time. Yay! Everyone is waking up and starting their day with their partners or their conquests or perhaps their demons or whatever that they have. And apparently, Tara mumbled those 3 little words in her sleep, which is actually something I don't think I ever caught in previous watches of this show.
Oh, I definitely caught it. Because I was like, in the last episode, wasn't she like struggling to say that?
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm pretty sure like they were talking directly about it and she like wouldn't say it. And I was like, what the hell? What just happened?
These two are a emotional roller coaster, to say the least. It's very I'd say it's very Jim and Pam, but like if it involved capital murder.
I was gonna say, how is it Jim and Pam? Where is this show going?
Anyway, we definitely know that Gemma loves her birds more than Clay, though. That one we were aware of.
That was very funny.
Yeah, and not a shock. And of course, Opie's family. It's wholesome. It's so sweet. The complete opposite of Tiggs, which is completely fitting whatever the hell he's doing. I personally like Piney. How he opens this show with some young woman in his bed trying to get a fix, and he just starts beating her with a pillow. Like, get out!
Yeah.
I love that. Piney is a gem. Just a gem. And Abel waking up to the doctor. And credits. Which actually came quicker than...
I wrote that down. I was like, was this shorter?
Yeah, it was like a montage and then credits. That's so weird. We usually...
I'm glad
it takes like 20 minutes to get there. Well, maybe. But the two things aren't mutually exclusive. Clay and Tig suck. That's the next line of my notes. That's what I have. It's just Clay and Tig suck. There's something going on in Oakland, and there's a secret mission to, murder Opie. So you being new to this series and watching this unfold for the first time, which is an enviable position. How have you been doing with this whole like Clay and Tig plot against Opie and seeing it come to fruition?
Not a fan.
No?
Not a fan. No.
Are you a big Opie fan at this point?
So yeah, you know how you were saying like the in the beginning, like he's like laying there with his family. Like as someone with a family, it's just like I've been there. I've been in bed with my littles and I'm like, oh, that's so cute. And they're all there and they're all cozy, and then it cuts to Tig and Clay being, but it's like I get it because they're like, they think he's like been against them. Like I understand why they are like in the position they are, but I'm like, oh God, no, it's so much anxiety because as the audience, as the fourth wall, that they're on the wrong side here. But yeah, no, I'm a big Opie fan. He seems very conflicted. He seems like a sweet guy. He seems like he is trying to do right by his family and by the club. So I think he's just kind of in a bad position.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I have always gone kind of back and forth on Opie, just as a character and how much I invest in him. And I think this time through, I'm not 100% on this, but this might be the first time I'm watching like the whole thing as a dad.
Oh, okay.
And so
Yeah, I think you get a different vibe because he's the
yeah,
only one that has a family, I think, right? No one else. Well, Tig said he had kids, but I mean, they're not a part of his life. So,
yeah,
but yeah, everyone else, I mean, Jax gets a baby right at the beginning, but like, he's not an established dad.
yeah.
So I think he's the only one in that spot, right?
Bobby has let's just say he's the only one that goes home to his wife and kids at night.
Okay.
There are
Is Bobby married?
no,
Okay.
no. He has ex-wives.
Okay.
At least one named Precious that you'll get to meet. Well, do you meet her? I think she pops up for like a second. Um, but that's what he does the Bobby Elvis stuff for, is to make some extra money to send
Oh,
for
I
his
do
child
love the
support.
Bobby Elvis stuff. That was great.
It's great.
Does it come
It's
back?
really good. Not enough. Not enough.
More
At
Bobby
some
Elvis.
point,
More
yeah,
Bobby
at some
Elvis.
point we kind of lose it. But it does it just kind of like pops up every once in a while,
Okay.
and
I
and
really
it's
liked
kind
it,
of
so I
fun.
was hoping it
Hmm.
would come back.
Yeah, it feels like something that was supposed to have a little bit more staying power, but then at some point in time, I don't think it's going to come as a shock to you that this series gets pretty serious in its
Yeah.
subject matter, and like eventually, how do you keep shoehorning in dressing like Elvis?
Right. Like I'm not sure how to incorporate this in a natural way.
Yeah, eventually it, eh.
Yeah.
Okay, so Stahl and her minion are barely phased that the bugs that they planted aren't working. The dude even said like, "Hey, what if the club found him?" And Stahl's like, meh, it's fine. He only has to survive one more day. What could happen? What could really go wrong? And they're gonna know that he wasn't the witness and that I'm a lying, dirty piece of shit and have been the whole time after all. That's what she said, right? That was her
Yeah,
dialogue?
I mean that's what I heard.
Okay, okay. Well, yeah, it's
It's what I
fine.
have in my notes.
It's yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Like, she doesn't give a shit if they kill Opie.
And
She really doesn't.
especially now after
Yeah,
what Otto did, like she's like, fuck these guys.
yeah. She
There's
does
no
not
way.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Clay, I had actually forgotten about this interaction. Clay walks right into her office like he owns the
Like
police
barges
station.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's how all this works. I don't know if you know, but that's
They
always
all
how
just
this.
let him come in. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. He just gets to. Unser's literally in like a jail cell, but
I know.
Clay
I
can just
love
come
that.
barging in. It's fine. Unser's the problem here. And this is where she should have just told him about Opie, right? Like if you think about knowing that the plan didn't work, she could have literally just said like, "Yeah, you got me. It didn't work."
I don't know. Isn't she still like kind of hoping something comes out of it?
I don't. I honestly don't think she
Or is
is
it
at this
already
point.
over by that point?
Yeah, I think she thinks it's done. I think she
Okay.
thinks that if it was going to like work, it would have by now, because this was always such a tight time crunch for her.
Sure.
She only had like 2 days for this to
Played out.
actually produce fruit. And Clay barging in and telling her to her face that she set Opie up, which again, he's doing, but doesn't believe. He's still
Right.
gonna, he's been on this weird parallel path this whole time with the Opie thing where he's like, his initial reaction was Stahl set him up. But then he's over here letting Tig convince him that they have to kill Opie. And he's still going to show up in Unser's office where Stahl is, and he just happens to know that because plot, and tell her to her face like, you're setting him up and it didn't work and you're a piece of shit. She could have easily been like, "Yep, got me."
I
But
think
you
Clay
don't
is
know who
like
the witness is.
I think Clay is like
Whatever.
desperately trying to I think he's really on Opie's side. And so I think he's just desperately trying to get her to say that, like I think that's why he barged in there. Maybe he was hoping exactly what you said, that she would have just said it at that point. Um, because it seems like he does really care about him.
In his Clay way,
Yeah,
if Clay cares about anything,
right.
he's at least
I think he also knows what that would mean with him and Jax's relationship as well.
yeah.
So maybe even if it's not about his feelings for Opie, he knows it's going to cause problems with Jax.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think that he could have gone in here a little bit more strategically.
Sure. Yet he doesn't seem like that kind of guy though.
No, no, but like he could have gone in here and tried to figure out if Opie really was the rat
Right.
instead of just trying to show her how big his dick was.
Yeah.
But he only knows one way, it seems.
Yeah.
At the table, Tig confirms that there are no bugs, which obviously doesn't factor into their plan to kill Opie, because why would it? They're trying to figure out how to pay for the lawyer for Bobby if he goes to murder trial. The same lawyer who convinced Clay and Tig that Opie flipped. Good lawyer. He's decided they're going to sell their surplus of guns, which is their personal stash, basically, and their protection guns. The stuff that they don't sell. That's what they're gonna sell now. And Jax and Chibs are not on board, but it's Clay's plan, so it's short-sighted and ego-driven, and it's gonna happen no matter what anybody else thinks. I am having a hard time being neutral on Clay from this episode. I think it's coming out.
That vibe.
Yeah, it doesn't, and I never really analyzed Clay's leadership ability before doing this podcast and looking at all of these micro decisions that he's making in each episode and thinking like, fuck, you could have done that way better.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't the move, Clay. Like, this is, and there's a bit of a theme to all of them being sort of the same guns and force. And
Is Bobby one of like the originals, like the OGs though?
no, Bobby is not a first 9 member.
Okay. Because I'm wondering, like, is that like why he's so desperately like, let's get him out of there?
No, I think he's, and I think there's a book that probably lays out more of the like finer details of each member's joining. I don't have that book. I should probably buy the book. But I think the way that it essentially goes is Clay was first 9, Jax's dad was first 9, Piney was first 9, Otto was first 9, and a character that you have not met yet, actually 2 characters that you've not met yet, were first 9, and then the other 2 are a mystery to me.
Okay.
But then
so you don't ever know them.
Okay. And then there's like the Tig, Bobby.
So they were like a second wave.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
they seem like
they're like the next generation, along with like Chibs. And then there's like the new generation of like Jax and Opie, and I think that the guy that they burned the tattoo off of his back was like part of their like their regime. And then Juice is Jax's prospect that got patched in.
Oh, okay. I don't think I realized that.
Yeah, well, you don't, that wasn't made clear, and it's literally like a throwaway line in a later season that it like
oh,
that
by
it
the
kind
way.
of is confirmed. Well, who sponsored Juice?
Okay.
Turns out it was Jax, according to that. But then like the actor that played Juice, Theo Rossi, he and the actor that played Tig, Kim Coates, did a rewatch podcast called Reaper Reviews.
Oh, okay.
Over the pandemic, and they gave some like insider information throughout the whole thing. And even Theo said it wasn't really clear throughout the filming the show who Juice's like was, like who his guy was.
I don't know enough about the whole prospect thing. So like I know half sack is a prospect.
Mhm.
So who so in order to be a part of the club, like someone has to like sponsor them?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. And so who's sponsoring half sack?
I don't know if they ever tell us. I the way that they interact, it makes me think it might be Chibs.
Okay.
They have a couple of interactions. Do you remember when Half Sack stole the ambulance?
Mm-hmm.
Where Chibs was like, if you ever want that bottom rocker, like you better come up with some cash, like kind of
Yeah.
off on the side. It made me feel like that relationship was a little bit. Plus, he was involved in like training him for that fighting and stuff like that. That kind of went
Right.
wrong.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
it
That would make sense. They
it
seem like
kind
they're
of
more together.
yeah, a little bit tighter. But the general process, and this is where they tried to follow at least some real life through lines or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
is you have to be invited to hang around, which is essentially they let you hang around when they do parties, and you
Mm-hmm.
can just come shoot the shit, whatever. Um, then if somebody invites you to prospect as a essentially a trial period for
Mm-hmm.
membership, then you get to do that. I think generally speaking, it's like 6 months to a year, fairly standard
Okay.
in that life. But in the show, they say it's a year, and once your year is up, they vote on whether you get to stay or not, and that's when you get an actual patch for the back of your cut, along with the rockers on the top and the bottom.
Okay.
Um, and those are like the insignias of your membership to the club. That's why he runs around with just prospect across the bottom of his. He hasn't earned it
Right.
yet. Hasn't earned his colors, his
Does
rags,
he does
his
he
all the things.
eventually does he eventually get in? Is that a spoiler?
It would be a spoiler that would do you a disservice.
Oh, okay. Don't tell me that.
So I'm gonna leave it alone.
I need to know. You're like, just
Anyways,
watch them faster.
yeah, yeah. Um, so we've got the plan going down in Oakland, and basically the gist of it is they're splitting up Jax and Opie, and they're splitting up the gun deal. Money in one place, guns in another. And this is about as strategic as you see Clay. It's just for all the wrong reasons.
Mhm.
And it on the surface makes it look like don't put guns and money in the same place. Lessen your likelihood of actually of getting caught and getting burned and all of that. What it really is getting Opie separated with Tig so that Tig can kill him. But that's what's going down, um, unfortunately. Uh, the thing that Clay is a fan of in this episode, though, is Abel getting to come home.
Mhm.
Yay! Uh, and Jax is a fan. Tara's a fan. Everybody's a fan. Everybody's a fan of Abel coming home.
Yep.
Finally. Fucking finally. I would like to say that this ends the trips back and forth to the hospital, but like, nope, we spend a lot of time there. Uh, Tara once again brings up their relationship. Apparently, I don't know, maybe she was dreaming the three little words and it's at the forefront of her mind. I don't know. I particularly like the funny line of Jax comparing her to Wendy. Tara didn't find it that funny.
No, I was like, romantic? What did you expect to happen on that one, Jax?
I mean, it's it's good though, kind of, sort of, in his own Jax way. We're reminded that he's still very, very much young bachelor brain
Yeah, I guess that's true.
because he was married to Wendy, but like,
How long were they married?
I honestly don't
Like
know.
I kind of forgot they were married until like later in the episode.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah.
oh yeah.
I
I
think
can't
she was
imagine that
just
was a long time.
no, I wouldn't think so. I mean, it was long enough for them to split and then try to reconcile, fail,
I'm just
have a
wondering if
premature baby.
if
Like, yeah.
if she got pregnant and then he like proposed type of thing.
No, because the pregnancy came of the failed reconciliation.
Oh, okay.
The the marriage, I think what it if I and again, there may be something out there that actually explains this a little bit better, but my interpretation from watching the show several times is that Wendy was a crow eater when Tara left town.
Bro eater?
So another very fun and doesn't pass the 2023 smell test in that culture, and they don't even call it this in the show because I think it's the insinuation is pretty rough, is the idea of a pass around.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
not a
sounds
fan of
just like
that.
that. Remember the Indian Hills episode
Uh,
where we meet Cherry
oh yeah. Sorry, I didn't know the name of it.
and what
Yep.
their
Yeah,
estet
wasn't a fan of that either.
that
So
essentially.
that's what she was?
Kind of. They just don't use it as like prostitution.
Right.
The idea in the culture is that there are women that hang around motorcycle clubs and they kind of just make their way through the club until maybe one of them hooks up a little bit more,
Right.
you know, on an ongoing basis. But
A more
that's just
permanent
a
basis.
yeah, yeah. But that's a thing that is documented in motorcycle culture history out there,
Mhm.
and that is in this show, the representation is Crow Eater. Remember I think it might have been the second episode. The what is her name? Emily Duncan that shows up.
Yes.
You know, you the for the creepy cremation guy.
Yeah.
You do me, I do him, girl.
Yep, I remember that. Yeah, I remember.
That was Wendy. Wendy was
Okay.
one of those.
Okay.
When either soon after or when Tara left town. And I think Jack's just kind of
Kind of latched onto her.
yeah, that was like his rebound. Well, I guess I don't know. Is kind of the way that I see that having come to fruition.
Hmm.
Um, anyways,
Sorry, didn't mean to get you off track. I was just like, I don't know what that means.
no worries, no worries. The thing that was a surprise in that scene to Wendy was the makeout session that she was
Mhm.
gonna walk into at the hospital. But we needed to start stirring some drama between those two women because
Right.
this is a soap opera, if we can like call it what it is. It's a soap opera on motorcycles geared towards men, and by God, it's a good one. And Gemma's being very, very nice, and that's just weird. It's weird. Gemma being nice to Wendy is weird. And Wendy even thinks it's weird. So she's like, hey, you're just being nice to me to try to get Tara out of the picture. And Gemma's like, yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing, Wendy.
Yeah. She basically is like, who cares about my motives?
Yeah, is that a thing that matters? Like, what do
She
you?
just
I'm
owns
being
it.
nice to you. Yeah,
She's
yeah.
like, and
Gemma is the anarchy.
yeah.
Uh, Stahl brings the real witness to a safe house, just as Jax and Opie are packing up the guns. You know, the surplus guns, the guns they don't sell, so that they can go sell them. And Opie's getting this weird, like, spidey sense tingling of this is getting something's off here, something's
Mhm.
uncomfortable. And he literally asks Jax if he's walking into something. Yep. Yep, sorry, you are. But Jax doesn't know. He does start kind of laying things out for him in that, like, his dad's vision of the club and stuff like that. And Opie looks on the bright side and, you know, thinks Clay's hands are going to give out in a couple of years and Jax will be the president soon of the club. Because remember, hands, we gotta beat that one in a little bit so that we remember hands for Clay. He's got his arthritis and whatnot.
Oh,
Cue
okay.
Donna showing up. Yeah, because that's what they're setting up right now. Is Clay's arthritis is going to get so bad he's not going to be able to ride a bike, and if you can't ride, you can't lead.
Oh,
Yeah.
that seems very minor.
I mean, yeah, I mean, but it's a motorcycle club after
No, I
all.
mean
Like
like
if
the
you,
hands that like
oh,
arthritis in your hands. It seems like very minor.
well, I mean,
I
the
don't know.
controls on a motorcycle are very hand driven.
Yeah.
So like you have to twist a throttle on this side, your front brake lever is up here,
Isn't
your
there like there's no like
clutch is on the
automatic
left.
type of thing that he could ride?
Um, I mean, he could,
This is probably before all the accessibility stuff
well,
came
yeah,
around,
I
I'm
mean, he
sure.
could go. I don't even think that Piney's trike has an automatic transmission. And at this time of this period that the show was made, I don't know that that was even a thing.
Yeah.
Nowadays you could find I know like a Can-Am is a thing that gets made fun of a lot by people who ride like two-wheel motorcycles, but like you
Hmm.
could do that. And I want to say somebody, one of the I want to say somebody like maybe a BMW or something like that has come with something that's automatic transmission sort of thing. I think maybe Honda has the new Rebel that I think supports that. I think there's a regular version and a
Yeah.
like a
There's
an
been a big
automatic
push in
version.
the last couple of years that where it's like accessibility and making things more
Hmm.
accessible to more people. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that this took place before all that. So it just
Yeah.
seems so minor now. I'm sure he
Yeah.
could figure out something.
Yeah, you would think, but turn signal and everything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the
Okay.
you would think, but eventually you're gonna see he actually at one point in time, Jax has to literally tie his hands to his handlebars
Oh my God.
while they're on a ride.
That's
Um,
nuts.
yeah,
Okay.
so they do play that up as if that's gonna be like the reason he loses his leadership chair is that he's not gonna be
Well, I'm
able
glad
to
you mentioned that because I
ride.
had not picked up on that at all. I was like,
Yeah, that's
what
the
they're waiting on here.
that's the thing that they're doing.
Okay.
Um, with that, Donna shows up, getting us back into the scene,
Hmm.
and she's about as happy as you've ever seen her.
Yeah.
Hmm. Coincidental?
I should have known. I should have
Yeah.
known right then.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, and
was like, man, she's in a good mood.
we've got some the kids are gonna reconnect with your mom, and we're gonna do it, and it's gonna be great. And then she's all down to go to Jax's house, and it's like, oh my goodness, everything's wonderful. It's not wonderful. And I can't wait for you to. I'm gonna plant this seed now
Okay.
because nobody could plant it for me when I was watching. This homeless lady that Gemma talks
Yeah.
to in this episode, just keep a little antenna. Just keep a little antenna up for the
For
homeless
that
lady. Mm-hmm.
particular lady.
She
Yeah,
has.
I wrote a note about her because I was like, this seems really random.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
And I
it
was
kind of.
confused by the interaction. Like she said
Mm-hmm.
something like, I'm able to help my kids. And then Gemma was like, and I'm like, is she picking on it because it sounded like her grandkid's name?
Because the way that she says it, and it's the way that she does actually say it, the way that Gemma hears it,
Yeah.
so that we can hear it.
Yeah.
But she starts with, Abel will help my little boys.
Oh.
And Gemma starts freaking out. And then she's like, what? And she clarifies, I'll be able to help my little boys.
Yeah.
And it's like, so that it's like, it gives you that, what did
Yeah.
you say about Abel?
Yeah.
Moment, and then easily remedied, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rewatchers right now are going a little bit crazy. But I think she's a fun addition to the show. And I
Okay. I'll
can't
keep an
wait
eye
to
out
see
for
you as you experience it for the first time
on your journey.
on your journey to leather and iron
There you go.
and
Okay.
lots of blood, which I guess has iron in it. I don't really know. Okay, so Clay and Leroy, the leader of the One Niners gang in Oakland. I had completely forgotten about this part of Clay's plan, but he's literally setting up his deal with the Mayans to get like infiltrated by the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, again, Clay being strategic more so than he normally is, but kind of in all the wrong ways, it seems. Even Tig's not a fan of how Clay's got this one going down.
Yeah.
He's totally fine with killing Opie, but he does not like the idea of shitting on their own, like, deal.
Yeah. And I was confused because he like straight up said like to kill Alvarez, right?
Yeah.
And didn't Alvarez, he already killed his own kid to make things right. So like, why are we still after this guy?
Well, I mean, we are talking about decades of literal, like,
It just
history
seemed
and war
weird.
between these two. Yeah.
I was like, I thought we resolved that.
Yeah, and Clay's nothing if not honest.
Yeah.
He says as sarcastically as he possibly
Yeah.
can. Cause yeah. But I did appreciate the American way line
I like that line
in
too.
this
That was funny.
because it's poignant. Anyway,
Still accurate.
Hale walks in as Stahl and her minion realize that Opie is a just complete walking bullseye because of them. So that's fun. Not really much to report there. We do get to our potential catfight setup that's happening. You know, we got the
Mhm.
Wenda and Tara awkward thing. And I don't care about it for the relationship part. Are you invested in that at all? Do you give a shit
About Tara and
about
Jax or
about the Wendy Tara, like, push and
I
pull, who's he gonna
this
choose, this
so
nonsense?
this scene was where I was like, she said something about like ex-husband, you
Mhm.
know, in an effort to make her feel better. And then Wendy's like, no, it's 2 more months until that's official. And then that's where I was like, wait, they were married. I was so fucking confused. So no, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm invested, but more kind of confused with it.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
That's how it should be at all times. This show should
Okay.
confuse you a little bit. I think that's what Sutter was going for.
Although I
Um,
will say in this scene, the part I really liked where Wendy was like, quit while you're ahead or alive for that matter. And I was like, damn, that's dark. And then it's really poignant of how the episode ends too.
uh-huh.
So I was
Yes,
like,
that is what I care about in this interaction
yeah.
is the Gemma, like, truth bomb
Hmm.
that gets just
Yeah.
in this moment. And it's a lot. And that's about as much as I can do right now with you. So that takes us to Opie and Tig having a, like, kind of cold ride in the truck for a minute, and then it warms up significantly
Yeah.
when Opie asks to borrow Tig's phone to check in on Donna, and they have this, like, touching moment
Yeah.
where Opie is the one to bring up Tig's daughters, like, he remembers you have a family.
He's like trying to connect with them. I think
Yeah.
it's just showcasing that he's like invested in these people.
Yeah, and I think that I don't think in this moment that it's a play by Opie in any way, right?
No,
Like,
I think he's just truly like,
yeah,
I'm
for
interested in
for
you and
once,
your life.
yeah, for once you get this, like, you get this feel that Opie really does have a personal connection with more people in this club than just Jax,
Yeah.
because we don't see a ton of it in season one. He's kind of broody
Yeah.
the whole season, and so he's fighting his inner battle, and you don't really see him interacting with the other members of the club other than Jax and
Yeah.
basically asking Clay if they're good and having, like, one other conversation with Clay where Clay's like, hey, are you good? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. Like, back in
Yeah.
the truck heist thing. So it is cool to see a layer of Opie here where he's like, oh no, he really knows these dudes, and he,
Yeah.
like, actually gives a shit about their family and whatnot. And we have Dawn and Fawn.
Oh my God, I laughed. I laughed right, and then Opie was laughing at the same time, and I was like, I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Well, The thing that I like, and this is so season 1 Tig is the worst. But
He
one
is
thing that you
the
get,
worst.
the one thing that you get that's almost like a glimmer of hope is the way that Opie just kind of looks at him and he looks back and he goes, I know.
I know. I'm aware.
I know. I know. But it's that little bit of just like
Yeah.
personalization of Tig isn't just some ruthless sociopath
Yeah.
like killer. There's heart to this character somewhere.
Really deep though.
Very, very, very deep and
Not seeing a
buried.
lot of redeeming qualities so far.
Very, very deep beneath the fear of dolls.
Oh my
Apparently,
God.
again.
I can't wait. I can't wait to talk about that.
Let's talk about it now.
Okay. It was so funny. His face when they walk in, he's like, he just looked terrified. Oh
Yeah,
my God, I love it so much.
this dude that will we have gotten, and this is just off the top of my head, so it's not going to be an exhaustive list, but we have gotten the taco twofer with the I will gut them and flush their bellies with bleach Tig. We have got the cold pack Tig, where he's asking Clay if he's ever done a dead body. We have got the like just ruthless murderer version of Tig. We've gotten the I will literally kill a member of this club Tig. And then we've got Dawn and Fawn and Scared of Dolls.
Yeah.
What just happened?
They're back to back.
Tig?
They're back to back. Yeah. I love it because he said like, I hate dolls, man. They creep me out. And I was like, and then like Opie was like, that's a story that needs to be told. And I'm like, I agree. What is happening here?
That's a fantastic line. That is wonderful dialogue. That's
Yeah.
a story that needs to be told.
He's like saying it as he walks away, and I'm like, I'm right there with you, man.
Yes,
Happening.
it does. Please tell that story. On the other side of this deal, Clay and Jax are with Alvarez, and Alvarez is happy with his guns, and you know, the Niners show up before Jax and Clay were gone. Who
Yeah.
could have seen this going wrong?
A little early.
Mm-hmm. I think we're in for, again, a layer of Tig that we're getting shown
Mm-hmm.
as the Niners hit the money side of this deal too. And he can't pull the trigger. And this is a question I want to ask you and the way that you interpreted this. Can Tig not pull the trigger on Opie because this is a brother and we just had that moment in the truck. I just kind of like opened up to him a little bit about my fear of clowns, like that kind of thing. Or is this more in your mind a direct cause and effect? This guy just saved my ass.
I think it's the just save your ass. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I love this scene because Tig gets surrounded by dolls and they're like talking. And so he's like freaking out. And I'm like, this is brilliant. It's absolutely hysterical. And then what I thought was really cool about this, because so far in the whole season, all I've seen is Opie like hesitating, like not moving forward. And it was like all of a sudden he was just efficient, killing people left and right, like no hesitation at all. And then he comes around and saves Tig. And it was like all of a sudden I was like, okay, so this is who he probably is normally in the club. Like he's not scared anymore, I guess. And then Tig gets that chance. And I think honestly, I truly do think it was just because he just saved him.
Yeah. I've never been able to pinpoint, because I think that was my initial reaction too.
Yeah.
But then again, the more and more I rewatch and I look at the different layers, I wonder
With the car. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like, I wonder how much he's struggling with this guy just saved me. And this, like, I'm really about to take out one of my guys here.
He probably was getting second thoughts while they were having that conversation in the car. And then I would think him saving him kind of like sealed the deal of,
yeah,
I'm not going to do this right now.
Yeah, you're probably right. I also think, to your point with Opie, I think this is, and I also think you notice a difference in the situation that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
This is fight or flight. This is
right. That's a good point.
This is protect my not just myself, but
Where he's not
a
going out to
brother.
kill someone, you know,
Yeah,
that
this
is innocent. You know what I mean?
this
Yeah,
isn't Hit
that's a
Squad.
good point.
Yeah, this isn't Hit Squad. This is survival and defense.
Yeah.
And I think you see that switch flip in Opie pretty quickly of like, oh, I can handle this stuff. Like this is this feels like natural reaction Opie,
Right.
whereas premeditated Opie is where his struggle seems to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Where
where
he's in
he's
his head.
yeah, yeah. Jax is successful in getting Clay out of the shootout on their side of things. Alvarez isn't happy anymore, by the way. He was happy when they started. He's not happy now.
I
I
can't
don't know if you
imagine.
noticed.
I can't imagine he's happy. Didn't he got shot in the leg too?
Yeah, yeah. Still has a pulse though, so that's
Yeah.
good. That's a plus. Clay's not happy either. Nobody's really happy.
This did not end well.
Yeah, this didn't go well, and Opie's still alive, so like Clay's not happy about that either. Um, alas. So Jax gives us a little recap of, you know, how this could be a big fucking problem. And Clay is not saying anything, but he's also really upset with how that went, how Opie went. Like they're broke with no guns, which becomes a thing. I'll give you that spoiler.
Okay.
That kind of becomes a thing for a club that sells guns.
To not have guns.
They kind of end up broke with no guns a few times throughout this. And it's just funny to me because at the beginning of this show, Jax was like throwing out money like they were just king shit. They're kingpins and whatnot. And now they're broke with no guns. And here we go. And part 2 of the Opie plot. It's not over. It's not over. We have to have another new way for Opie to get killed and try to make it look like a gang shooting as a result of today's incident.
I liked so when they're talking and doing those plans, you know, Clay is like, what about Opie? Like, you know, what happened, you know, to Tig. And I like how it kind of paused. It was like it was like I couldn't do it. Pause. I couldn't get a clear shot. So it was like the truth and then the cover up. And I liked how that was done.
Yeah. Yeah, because we've had Opie struggling this whole season. Jax has been struggling this whole season. We're starting to see Tig struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
Mentally, I mean, like, you know, with the two sides or whatever, or just, you know, things that they have to do, and he's struggling with, no, this is I'm Trigger Man, you know, and I'm Clay's guy. I'm Clay's puppy. I gotta do what Clay wants, and he's having a hard time with it. It's interesting. So now, finally, something bright and happy. Jax gets Abel with Wendy, and a weird welcome home party begins, and it feels so wholesome. For like a minute, could probably do without Tara trying to like mark her territory on Jax. Like I mean, she's pretty much giving him like a golden shower in front of everyone right now. She's like, I'm
very deliberate.
Yeah, like it could do without that, personally. Jax doesn't handle it well. He tries to handle it a little bit subtle.
Like, you can tell he was like, what the hell?
Yeah, he's like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, what are...
He picked up on it, for sure.
Yeah, and I think he at least, like, I appreciate that he asked to talk to her in private.
That was class act.
Yeah, I appreciate that I also appreciate the surprise. If I can put myself in his shoes, because they've been... I mean, she's been struggling this whole time with what is this weird thing that we're doing? You know, should we even be doing? And now you're gonna go all PDA about it and try to like make a show of us being a thing in this moment when I just brought my kid home, kind of like what the what?
Yeah.
I don't know that his delivery was great.
I think it escalated really quick. I think it was a forced escalation there.
Yeah.
It was like, I did, because like she smacks him.
Oh,
Like,
she
and
slaps the
it
shit
was
out of him.
so, yeah. And I just felt like it wasn't really warranted. It just seemed very aggressive
It
and
did.
quick
It did.
about, because they didn't really talk that much before it happened. I was like, what
Mm-mm.
did they? I wonder if like the editors maybe deleted some of the fight. You know what I
That's
mean?
fair. That's fair. There could have been more or a lead up.
Yeah.
You know,
It
a
just seemed
scene.
very quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, her and maybe I mean she had a beer in her hand.
Yeah,
I don't think we've ever seen her drink on the show.
that's
So
true.
like maybe we're supposed to take that like this was like a family gathering where beers are
Oh,
flowing and there's a little
and that reminds me.
thing.
So before they get home, there's the scene where they're picking up the baby,
Hmm.
and Tara and Wendy are there. Gemma's there because she's fucking always there.
Yeah.
And like there's like definitely some like death glares between Tara and Wendy. And then Gemma makes a point to say, "Let's get this family home," you
Oh
know?
yeah.
And like Tara does this big ass eye roll. And so I'm wondering, because I'm like, maybe like she was just so fed up and maybe she was drinking. I don't
Hmm.
think they really played that up, but I'm like wondering if like that line really cut her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's clearly been a fester for her
Yeah.
to build up to this, and that's why I wonder like I don't know how much time we're supposed to believe has passed
Hmm.
and if maybe they've been there for a while and she has had a little liquid courage or
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it did seem like an escalation.
Okay. God, I wasn't alone on that one.
And then of course Opie and Donna they switch cars.
I
Opie
don't want to
takes the
talk about
kids
it.
home. She takes the truck. Unser shows up late. Tig's already gone. Leaves his phone
I'm
on
so
his
sad.
bike. Clay can't get a hold of Tig. And fuck.
It's so awful.
Showtime. There's two things I want to hit on this, and then we can wrap this because, for the love of God, we've been talking about this episode for a really, really long time.
Oh,
But this is the important part. One, as a first time viewer and seeing this unfold with fresh eyes and just happy heart, what was your immediate reaction?
well, I did text you right after I finished the episode, and on separate lines, I did WTF. I was like, ah, yeah, it was so much anxiety. Like, so they went outside and they're all like being lovey, and
Mhm.
again, they're really playing up that Donna is having a good time and that she's forgiven him, like we're moving on. We're not going to be assholes anymore to her husband, type of thing. And then the guy Tig pulls off, and then they switch cars, and I was like, no. I was like, oh no, oh no. And like my husband was next to me on the couch, and I was like, no, no, no. And he's like, what? I was like, they switched cars. The guy thinks he's in the car. Freak out. Oh, that was so awful. Yeah, it was just heartbreaking. And then like as Opie drives off with the kids, like Tig like ducks down in the car. Like had he not, he would have seen him in the car. Like the whole thing, it just plays out. And then Unser shows up late and talking to Clay, and you can just see the wheels turning in Clay's eyes. He's
Mhm.
like, "Oh shit!" And then he's calling, and then I'm like, "Of course he doesn't have his phone on him." Like it was just, oh, it hurt my heart. It hurt my heart.
Yeah. What do you think about the way that Tig did it?
So it was so weird because like we talked about in the beginning, like he was all of a sudden not able to do it. And I'm like, what changed? Now all of a sudden you are able to do it. Is it because you didn't see him? You didn't have to look at him? You're doing it from behind. He shot him from behind type of thing. So I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't know. I'm thinking that's the only reason he could go forward with it, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I, spoiler, I think we get confirmed as much, but I think that's the way that this is able to play out this way
Hmm.
is if he sees Opie's face, he can't do it.
Right.
So,
And I think he knows that. So he's like,
mhm,
let me just distance
yep.
myself a little here.
But he has to do it. He feels like he has to do it for Clay, for the club.
Yeah.
Like this guy, we might be close, but like still think that he is a rat and he's, trying to take us down and whatever.
Yeah.
Got to do it. And that's the way he can move forward. And then he sees Donna.
That was awful. Because in movies and TV shows, like people can get shot and not die, and so it's like the first shot goes through, and I was like, okay, we're okay. And then it was obvious, obvious that yeah, I was like, no, it's not. So you're like, oh, she's dead before you even see her. It's
Yeah.
fatal. Well, so sad.
And the episode's not over. How's it not over? Everything should be over. It's not over.
It was really heartbreaking. Everybody coming to Donna,
Yep.
and then Tig's pulling up like nothing happened. And then I liked Unser's line to Clay where he's like, some
Mhm.
scumbag made a tragic mistake. And I'm like, he knows.
Yeah.
He's got to know.
And he twists the knife.
Yeah.
And we
I
got to
was really
see.
panicky at first when Opie pulled up because I thought the kids were still in the car. And I was like, oh, it's going to
Mhm.
even be even more tragic.
Yeah.
But luckily they were not.
Yeah. Yeah. But we have to see Opie's reaction. We have to
Which was
feel
heartbreaking.
it, which is awful. And Stahl shows up.
Of course.
And Hale does what we wish he did to her minion.
Yeah. He's like, this blood's on your hands. And then
Mm-hmm.
he punches that guy. And I was like, okay, maybe Hale isn't so bad. I was like,
Yeah.
like,
Maybe it's
I like
okay.
that. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And then Jax makes it home. He just wants to be with his kid. We see the fallout with all of them. Jax, Piney, Tig, who's like beating his head against a wall or a mirror. Clay and Gemma, like all of this. And then Opie. Kid's asleep.
And he looks awful.
He might never sleep again.
Like he
Like,
looks straight up awful. And all I
yeah.
can think was like, why did no one go home with him?
Yeah.
Like when people who I've loved have died, I go home with them. I don't want them to be alone. I'm like, nobody went home with this poor man.
Yeah.
Where was Jax on that one? Like, come on, bud.
Doing Wendy. That's where he
Yeah.
was. That's where he
That's
was.
where he was. And that
Hmm.
was also confusing to me. I'm like, again, is that something people do when they're sad, they're having sex?
I
Because
think
that's the last thing I'm like, no. That is not the top of my priorities when I am that sad.
I will say this. Jax has a bit of a pattern
Hmm.
when dealing with something emotional.
Okay.
He may or may not throw himself into someone.
Into someone.
And uh yeah, and that's the episode. Tara tossing and turning in her bed alone, and Jax tossing and turning in his.
It was
Very
it
much
was
not
it was
alone.
very interesting. I thought that the opening scene was exactly the same as the end scene, but with a different lady.
It's a
Like he was same spot, same
hmm
look, same lighting, everything. I was like, that's cool.
it's a good call. It's like the episode opened on everybody starting their day,
Yeah.
and then it ended on them in
How they
bed,
ended
like
that
at the
day.
end of the day, and it's like, what a fucking day,
Yeah.
and what an episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I I don't know if there are words, so you can do the rest of this podcast.
Okay, so originally when you were like, "Hey, yeah, you can come on for this episode," and I was like, and you're like, "It's a good episode," and I was like, "It's the second to last episode. How exciting can it possibly be?" Like
Mhm.
usually the last episode is very exciting. Um, and then I was like, "Holy shit!" As I'm watching it, I was like, "Okay, no, that was a good one." But that brings me to a question for you. What is the
Mhm.
last episode like? Is there a cliffhanger? Is it even more crazy? Because it's usually the last episode that's nuts.
Um,
Or is it more like chill out?
the last episode, so you obviously don't mind being spoiled a little bit. Um, it's not like this.
Okay.
The last episode is a lot of the fallout.
Okay.
It's the it's the suspicions, it's the funeral,
Oh.
it's the um it's a lot it has it's not without its action,
Hmm.
but it's a almost like a almost like a very emotionally driven episode and a
Hmm.
big like foundational episode to
Okay.
launch kind of the rest of the series, but to set up season two.
Okay.
It's a I don't want to say it's an all setup episode because like there's stuff that happens. They resolve a couple of things that are still laying out there at the moment.
Hmm.
And they but there's it's also very 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 much the fallout of this mistake
Hmm.
because
Okay.
it was a mistake.
Right.
It wasn't just a mistake to put the hit out. Literally everything got botched.
Everything was
You
everything
didn't
messed
just
up.
kill the wrong person, but you were after the wrong person because,
Right.
like, we know Stahl has told us that the real witness's identity is gonna have to become public the next day and
Hmm.
stuff like that. That's what Unser was telling Clay. Like, the real witness is out. It's not Opie. Like, so you get there's still a witness out there. Like, there's so certain things you got to move forward, certain things you got to deal with,
Hmm.
and then you also have fuck the club literally just killed Opie's wife.
A completely innocent person.
Yeah. Yeah, and how many times have they made it a point throughout this season to say we don't hurt innocent, we don't hurt women, we
Yeah.
don't hurt children. They've
Especially
set
with all they just did to like protect and save Cherry.
hmm
You're like,
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to hit on this
Oh, another
or
thing,
any of your journey?
I don't know if you noticed with the credits. So it
Mm.
was super sad, super sad. And then it was like all of a sudden you have those loud ass credits rolling. And I was like, they should have put them in silent
Oh, there you
because
go.
it would have had much more of an impact. Like, I know you haven't seen Game of Thrones, but they do that a lot. Like they have their awesome music, but it's like when something like happens, like it's just like drives that point home when you have just utter silence at the end. And
Mm.
I was me and my husband were both like, well, that was that's very chipper music for it to
That
end
was
on. It
that
was
was
just
stark
kind of
difference.
throws you out of it a little bit. So I don't know
Mhm.
if you noticed that, but it was something that I was like, okay, that was a bit weird. Another question I wanted to ask, that's kind of a spoiler question, is I need to know if Tig ends up with like HIV.
Oh,
Because
what
this
an
dude all the time.
what an interesting question.
Or if maybe someone else in the club, but I would assume it would be him.
What can I tell you about Tig's sexual concourse? To answer your question directly, no,
Aw,
nope, he does not.
missed opportunity there.
Well, it's only the beginning.
Oh no.
Tig has a very Tig is not my favorite character.
No, me neither.
I hate him in season one.
Especially after this episode.
Right, right. But he's not my favorite character throughout the series. However, that is because of the character.
Hmm.
He is written very well. He has a really, really interesting arc, and
Okay.
he has some really, really interesting points along that arc that aren't all sexual, but include the sexual component of his life. That is, you're gonna take a ride with Tig.
Okay.
We're just at the beginning of that ride, and the beginning is painful.
It's painful. All right. I have one more question. That's a spoiler question. Is there ever a girl in their club, in their group? Do they even allow girls to be in their
No,
club?
nope,
No. Damn.
no. And that is something that they did particularly for the culture of realism. Um, these particularly the 1% clubs that they're depicting,
Mhm.
um, do the women don't wear patches.
Okay.
They're not at the table. Um, Traditionally, they're not even like involved.
Yeah, I know you've
Um,
mentioned a couple times like Gemma's portrayal, like you think it's not
yeah, I think
actually
that they,
accurate.
yeah, and I think that they, because and Sutter was asked at like at cons and stuff like that, like are there are you ever going to put a woman in the club? And he's like, no, because they like
They
that
aren't.
doesn't. He's
Yeah.
like, and he answered diplomatically where he's like, in the research that we did to set up the show, that is not a component of this lifestyle. That's not a component of these clubs. The women don't, that's just not how they work. They're very archaically traditional in
Hmm.
that way. Now, you can go out and find a weekend club, riding club that's co-ed where
Hmm.
women wear patches, men wear patches. Like you can find that, but that's not these 1% outlaw
Right.
traditional hierarchy type of clubs. So no, there's not going to be
Okay.
women wearing a patch, and I think the way that they balance that well is by having very strong female characters attached to the men in the club,
Sure.
and so they still give you that dynamic. And I think to a point of kind of culture be damned
Hmm.
to give them that involvement, to give them that, like, I mean, Jim was basically pulling the fucking strings on this club. She doesn't need a
Right.
patch. And that's where I think they do veer from what the real world would be in those specific types of clubs. But I think that's the way that Sutter navigated that, was like, he's like, I'm not just gonna say like, yep, blow up every semblance of like realism that I'm trying to build here for the relatability of this club, and put a woman in it. I'm just gonna put really, really strong women around it.
Right. I also noticed like the race all like they all seem to be, I don't know, I guess there's a little bit of Hispanic stuff, but
That
like
comes
you have
up.
one group with black people, one group with Hispanic people,
Mhm.
and then this one is the majority white people. Do
That
they get more diversity in there?
that comes up,
Okay.
and that
All right.
becomes a thing. They hit a lot. So, and I think, and without, so to not spoil you, I think what I'll say is, in one of those Comic Con responses that
Hmm.
Sutter was asked about, um, somebody brought up something about race and diversity and stuff like that, and how, quite frankly, like, jarring this show is, and even was back then, with like the language that is used, and
Right.
how like racial lines are just like drawn in permanent marker.
Right.
um but Sutter literally said, in his response, he's like, I think I'm pretty sure we have the most diverse like cast and
Yeah.
show on network television, which is, I think, a testament, considering we're writing a show about white bikers.
Right.
So like, they hit they hit on a lot. We get a lot of the racial stuff. We get They hit on topics back when this show was going, which concluded in, what was it, 2014 is
Hmm.
when this show ended on TV. And there is representation and depiction of things that are very, very current right now.
Unfortunately, I'm sure.
And some of them are, I think, while they were done through the lens of what Sons of Anarchy is, very, very positive depictions,
Hmm.
and then some that are just gut wrenching, as they should be,
Right.
for the topic of material that we're going to hit. And when those happen, I'm going to try to do a disclaimer at the beginning of episodes to say, hey, trigger warning for this, trigger
Yeah.
warning for that. There's going to be a few of those. But it was done very, very well while staying true to what this show is meant to be,
Hmm.
and still addressing a lot of like very controversial topics and not shying away from anything and just putting them at the center of like episode plots. And it's like, yeah, this is real conversation stuff. This is real stuff. Like, you're gonna watch it.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to see it.
Yeah.
And let's just say it's not always adults. And
Mm.
sometimes it's tough.
It makes me sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I can't wait for you to see it.
Yay! Let's end on that positive note.
Okay, so if you're still here, it means you must really like the show, or you just really like Cousin Amy. Either way, I don't care. You should join the Patreon. It's awesome. It has bonus episodes. It has shout outs in the episodes. It has the fan fiction that I was writing. There's 6 chapters of that are up in there for the fictional sequel. That I must reiterate, I think, in light of current events and whatnot, we're not getting a sequel. That's not happening. That's not coming. So I started writing my own. And yeah, you should check it out. Shout out again to Alice, our newest Bonus Binge patron. Remember, patreon.com/belated binge. Before we go, let's rewrite Sons of Anarchy one small change from the episode at a time. For this episode, what if Hale didn't take so long to tell Unser about the way Stahl set up Opie?
Good question.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to take a stab?
Okay, so Unser came in, and Hale was now in the jail cell hanging out, right? And he was like, you know, going back and forth between, do I do what's right for my badge, or I do what's right, so if I don't, someone's going to get hurt. And I loved Unser there because he was like, he said something like, these badges aren't even real silver. And I'm like, and it kind of bothered me that like that would even come up, Hale. Like, why is that even a question?
Mm-hmm.
Like that you're struggling with, you know what I mean? Especially since he seems to have like grown up here, like know all these
Mm-hmm.
people, like I'm like, this guy.
But he
That
wants nothing more than to take them down.
Yeah.
But he
I
just
don't know.
doesn't want to do it like this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
I just think that's interesting.
I agree with you. That question will be shared on social media at Belated Binge across all the things. There's also an exclusive Facebook group for listeners of the podcast where you can see Cousin Amy do her reaction threads when she watches the episodes for the first time, and I don't invite her on the podcast, which she can come back anytime, ever. And yeah, you can share your response in there as well. Best responses will be used in a future episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, review, all that stuff. Belatedbinge.com, leave a voicemail, do all the things. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for coming and hanging out. It's about damn time.
It's
This
good
is
seeing
fun.
you.
You too. We're going to have to do more of these. So
I'm
many
I'm
more.
for it. I'm all about it.
Okay. New co-host solidified. I didn't even ask. I just told. Remember, life is short. Buy the motorcycle. And when you do, wear a helmet. Dress for the slide, not the ride. And make sure you're taking Belated Binge, Sons of Anarchy, along for that ride.